Hey, what's going on, everybody? Hope you're having a fantastic Saturday. I am, as always. Today, we're going to be doing some alien encounter horror stories. It's been actually a very long time since we read some of these. I enjoy them. Some of you don't, some of you do, but that's why we have a lot of different stories that we read, right? But don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It helps me, it helps the channel out, and it allows us to reach more of an audience so that we can get farther out there. But I hope you enjoy listening to today's stories as much as I did reading them. Thank you. During the fires that consumed Mount Charleston, Nevada, my parents drove out to the mountain when the roads were clear. They described the wildlife to be running around the car as they drove through the open road. My dad told my mom to stop the car, and he got out and started walking through the desert. He realized that the wilderness is running, including snakes and other deadly animals. He witnesses a moose or an elk in the distance that was looking at him, but walked off in the direction of the rabbits and the other wildlife. As he gets in the vehicle, both my parents and his father described seeing a tall man crouched down in front of the car, wings draped over his back. As he stands and faces them, his wingspan wide enough to cover the entire two-lane road lifted him off the ground in 4 swooshes. They described him as muscular, broad shoulders, arms and legs, but the face was mesmerizing. They couldn't describe his face, but it was not a human. It sounds like a man-bird. The Mothman was a topic of discussion for them to decide if it was the Mothman or not. If anyone has any similar stories about this creature, please share them with me. I want to understand what they saw. This happened in October of 2020 in Pelham and Helena in Alabama, as I live near the border of the 2 towns and followed it into Helena from Pelham. This is a long story, but I want it to be detailed as possible. However, my interaction with this thing was over an hour and a half and a lot to talk about. It's been bugging me a long time, and as much as I try to rationalize what happened, I can't. So I will try my best to tell my story and hope someone will maybe have had a similar indecency happen to them, and I will be able to get a better understanding of this. On with what happened, I am living with my girlfriend in Pelham, Alabama. We live together in a development. We were doing our regular thing, playing video games, relaxing, late around 1 a.m. Can't get the exact dates and times if anyone's interested. Anyway, I go outside to smoke a cigarette and I hear a woman yell. As I live in a development, I think nothing of it, but it continues and I become curious as the yelling continues. Over 5 minutes, and I become a little concerned, so I start to pay closer attention to it, and I believe the yelling is coming across the main road near my development in a small patch of woods. So now I'm thinking it may be a fox, as they make a almost identical sound to a woman, and thought, okay, cool, it's just a fox. But it continues to scream, "Somebody help me," clearly. I am not trying to approach it anymore, and just almost try to make sure I'm hearing this thing right. Then it screams, "Please help," again, and again. This is clear, and I'm sure now that this is not a fox. I approach closer because I think someone needs help, but the screams are moving away from me, out of the small patch of forest next to the road. Down the road about 50 yards to another development across the street. I entered the development, and now I'm 90% sure this is someone's TV, or someone has a Halloween decoration that is making this noise. But it bothers me that I thought I was standing right next to where I heard it originally. I am now walking in this development. I text my girlfriend about what happened just in case someone did need help, but it was probably nothing. I'm trying to follow this screaming as it continues, almost 2 or 3 times a minute. always the same phrases. Please help me. As I am walking down the road, it seems more difficult to follow, and it seems to be coming from much further away now, so I decided to just go home. If someone needed my help, I thought, why would they be running so fast? As they would have to be to cover the distances. As I am walking back home after 4 or 5 minutes, it then starts again, much more loudly, and I now have a much better idea that this is coming from this larger forest near a cell phone tower. I am now hearing the screams in the woods about 50 yards from me, in those same woods. I am standing on the street, and as I am listening to this, I notice that it is moving quickly parallel to me. It moves 50 yards to my right, stops, screams help, then runs about another 50 yards to my left, and I am baffled that anyone could move so quickly, and this went on for another 5 minutes. It only stopped to speak and ran again, and this didn't make any sense to me anyway. I wasn't sure to enter the forest and try to help this person, but I still couldn't see it, almost as if it was crawling, as I saw the bushes moving and heard the twigs snapping and the screaming. Then it screamed a different phrase. Over and over it screamed, "Why aren't you helping me?" It did this rapidly for almost about 2 minutes. Then it made a different noise. It started making a very low, almost grunting, growling noise. This is when I became terrified. I couldn't rationalize this. I am hearing the woman screaming and this low grunting, growling noise over and over. I realize this isn't my imagination. This is insane. I then realized how far I am from my house and how long this had been going on for, and everything almost came together. This thing wants me to come out into the forest. It isn't running back and forth at a 50-yard distance anymore. It's almost running back and forth 20 yards, and very close to me, about 10. It refuses almost to leave the woods, but wants me very badly to come into those woods. The grunting becomes way more frequent along with its movements, almost running faster and faster back and forth. I think I see something low to the ground, possibly white. It's hard to tell, and it's moving quick. I am almost scared so much, so I tried to go to the camera button on my phone, but I couldn't find it, and that grunting was terrifying. I stopped and decided to call 911 immediately. I know whatever this thing isn't friendly, and it's wanting me in those woods for whatever reason. I never heard of this happening to anyone, and that's not good because that tells me that this thing probably doesn't leave anyone alive it hunts, and I was in trouble. I tell the operator where I am, and that a woman is screaming. Once the Helena police show up, all of a sudden, it just stops, and we never heard that same sound again. So, just some background before getting into my experiences. I've been practicing astral projection for the past 23 years. So one morning, I floated out of my body, and there were several aliens standing around me. And I'll be honest, they were creepy. Pretty sinister vibes. The energy of individuals and entities is something you can easily pick up while out of body. And I actually picked up on their energy before even seeing who or what they were, before even being able to see my environment. As I was shifting out of body, I felt their presence and felt their unique energy signature. So these aliens would make regular appearances for quite some time. And when I say aliens, I simply mean entities that look like traditional aliens. Big, black slanted eyes, triangular shaped heads, small, skinny bodies. They would affect me with this energy that felt almost artificial in nature, and it had a paralyzing effect on me. They would pull me out of my body without my permission or any intent to leave my body. I've had more strange experiences with these guys than I can fit into a book. I've encountered many different groups or types of aliens during my out-of-body experiences, but I'm talking about one group in particular. They looked like the Greys, but had light orange skin. I've had more encounters with this group by far, and they seem to be lower frequency compared to some of the other groups, some of which I've had rather enlightening and profound experiences with. So, the first thing I know about these entities is that they operate in the astral dimensions. They can be found in higher dimensions, and sometimes they actually find you there, especially if you practice astral projection. Many alleged alien abductions seem to actually be cases of people being taken out of their bodies by these aliens and mistaking it for a physical reality experience. Don't get me wrong, both are genuine experiences. They just take place on a different plane of reality. Although, I'm certain that many abductions are physical experiences. This happened to my mom when she was between 15 and 18 years old. We narrowed the years down by knowing it was before Chernobyl, but after her youngest sister was born. This occurred near the family farm. She was outside and noticed what looked like a giant dragonfly, a thin body of length of about 20 centimeters, sitting on a tree branch about 5 meters away. Its eyes were approximately the size of avocado seeds, if not slightly smaller. The 4 wings were see-through, and the body was brown with yellow stripes. The tail was bent while resting, hanging down from the tree branch. She never had seen anything like it, and her earliest accounts to me described it as a mutated dragonfly. Eventually, this giant dragonfly turned its head, and when it noticed my mom observing it, it stared at her. But she noticed that it had an intelligent look. She said a dog can sometimes have intelligent expressions that give a sense of understanding, but this was a much bigger feeling or sense. Unlike anything she has ever seen in any other animal, she felt the dragonfly truly understood her, and she felt its presence. She felt as if it had a soul. She was slightly overwhelmed, and she felt as if she had gained knowledge that she wasn't able to recall. The giant dragonfly sensed this. It knew my mom saw beyond it just being an insect, and so after only staring at her standing still for about 5 seconds, it quickly flew away. However, it was much faster than usual. She recalls that she could only follow it flying away with her eyes for a second until it disappeared, not going out of view, but completely disappeared, as if it teleported or just went invisible. This is an encounter that my mother and my uncle experienced as kids in the 1970s. When I was younger, my mom and my uncle would tell this story to us, and I always thought it was a ghost story. But recently I've been thinking it was an encounter. Please let me know if you've had a similar experience, and if you believe their story was an encounter as well. My mom lived with her older sister, older brother, and mom in a very old apartment complex. The complex was owned by my mother's aunt, but my grandma would run to it to make money. The apartment complex was pretty large, and the only bathroom they had was pretty far away from where they would sleep. My grandma took over a couple of the rooms on the side of the complex since they weren't being rented. There were around 3 to 4 rooms, and they were being used as storage. One room was a bedroom, and my mom couldn't recall what the other rooms had. In an actual apartment that was next to those rooms, they had a kitchen, a TV, and a room where they all slept together. Because the building was pretty old, most of the rooms didn't have any light, but the actual apartment did. Since the bathroom was really far away from my grandma, we would have to have my mom and her brother bring a bucket at night. But since back then there was barely any lights, the nights would be very dark and it would make my uncle and my mom super nervous. They would have to carry a cable light with them. So then one night, again, my grandma forced them to go get the bucket, and they both nervously hurried to go get it while carrying the cable light. They got the bucket out of the room, and as they were heading back, my uncle noticed a fire light in the patio and immediately shields my mom and starts shaking. My mom, confused, tries to see what it was. The way she described it, it was like a fire, like projection, but not red, more like a wider fire. They both try to run and try to go back to the main apartment, but her older sister locked the door behind them as they left. My uncle, out of fear, takes off, leaving my mom behind. My mom was so scared. Out of shock and fear, she falls to the floor and observed a shadow creature running out of the light. She described this creature around a kid size. She noticed its eyes, but she said although they were bigger, they weren't exaggerated, just bigger. For the color, she said it was like a grayish, translucent color. My uncle, as he was running out, trips over a stair and then watched the shadow run out until it disappeared. Once my mom's sister finally let them in, they wouldn't stop crying. They couldn't sleep or talk. They were traumatized for years. My grandma would try to make them explain. Other people believed that my grandma needed to dig a hole on the patio because the shadowy creature might have let them know there's treasure. My grandma believed that if she dug a hole, she would find something bad. For a while, my mom and her brother weren't the same. And then when they finally were able to talk about it, my mom realized it wasn't her imagination. I think this story is really interesting because usually an experience like this happens to only one person, but two people at the same time. Perhaps they really did see the shadowy, gray-like creature. Thank you everyone for listening. If your story was told, I'm glad I'm the one who could tell it. I appreciate all the love and support, and please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It helps me and it helps the channel out. I hope you enjoyed listening to today's stories as much as I did reading them.